Welcome back to the Eric Krown crypto channel, wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice Wednesday hump day that we have going on, as Bitcoin is probably going to get humped yet again. Similar to yesterday, we have a major event coming up, so I do want to start this analysis on a bit of a different leg here as we go over to the Krown chain application, which can, by the way, do this for yourself for free in the link in the description below. Hit the events tab, and yes, what do you know? Core PPI coming up a little bit later today around US market open. You can set alerts for yourself as well if you so desire over here. And with that in mind, well, you will be notified when the event does occur. You'll probably also be notified by the damn price action, because the price action is going to be moving as usual, quite volatilely, if that's even the right word. Anyways, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let me just bring up my notes over here as I switch panes and get into the full visual view. And yeah, first things first, I wanted to follow up on kind of like the biggest thing that I'm looking for in the next 48-hour period to kind of judge whether Bitcoin is likely to continue on with this rally. Now, yesterday we had Jesus, man! Yesterday we had a massive girthy pumple right there. Now, didn't we? Nice and girthy. It even reminds me of this beautiful clip that I heard just from yesterday, very surprisingly, from good old Joe.
Look. I was swiping on Tinder the other day and saw a chick with the biggest fucking booty I've ever seen.
What? That's not it.
Damn, that shit was huge.
God damn, that shit was huge. That's fucking right, man. God damn, that shit was huge. And so I do want to start the analysis right here, simply because while today, is a bit of a wild card event, as with any event, there's no way to know, in advance. Like, this is not where the edge of technical analysis or quantitative analysis really is, because, these sort of events will produce outlier situations. The ideal situation is to come at it with generalized areas as to indicate what is most likely to happen after, rather than necessarily before. And so in this case, we have a big close coming up on the 5-day time frame for the Gaussian channel, where it's going to have a chance to close above the mean band for the first time, basically since January of 2022, so more than a year ago now. And it will close above that pivot if Bitcoin does close tomorrow night, not tonight, but tomorrow night, which very likely is going to be greatly influenced by today's event. Above about low 23s basically. So right now, so far so good. But just as you saw yesterday, a $2,000 move to the upside and then a $2,000 move to the downside is like it's nothing, right? So ultimately, I suspect that we won't really have full clarity on the situation until we probably come back down tomorrow on Thursday. Now again, Thursday, just for whatever reason, does seem to be the most down day for Bitcoin, especially over the past 4 to 5 months now, I believe. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a done deal just yet, but I do want to make a couple of specific notes right here. Bitcoin did hit the top side of the target from the Gaussian channel, which was $26,500, also in alignment with the stochastic daily setup that we spoke about like 3 or 4 days or 4 or 5 days ago now, and in the Joule setup or Joule Light setup that we're about to speak about here as well. So here's the thing. Again, if Bitcoin can close above that tomorrow night, then I would say Bulaw's hopes continue to remain, the most likely thing, with probably playing out a range between the mean band and the topside band for a few closures, and that can lead into continuation. Probably not this month. I do think that would be too soon, but maybe more than likely April if that does occur. Just like we've seen many times in the past, anytime that Bitcoin has actually closed above the mean band, it's like to kind of play a bit of a range between the top band and the mean band right here, but in all cases, it's actually busted on through there after closing above the mean band, and in many cases, well, not many cases, but in 3 out of the 4 prior historical cases, that busting action led to new all-time highs, over the next year to 2. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that that's likely to happen over here. Again, you can get something like this where you get some busting action. I mean, god damn, that shit was huge as well, as you can see over here in 2019, but eventually did come back down, in some pretty aggressive waves, setting up for the the real move after the March 2020 dump bolas. Anyways, going back into it over here and moving on to the next point, I do want to kind of put this into perspective with the daily Joule setup that we were looking at over the past few days here since Sunday. This is when this one fired off essentially. And what is it? Well, first things first, let me explain it. Anytime that we see the daily Joule get down to the extreme low zone, extreme critical bear zone, basically, and then turn white, that has initiated a pretty sizable bounce over the full history of Bitcoin, of which there were 13 prior times, not counting this one, which would be the 14th. So you can see over here. Well, hey, bastard. Okay, there we go. Thank God for the undo function. But you can see, many times in Bitcoin's history. And it did happen again on Sunday, alongside some major divergences as well. But more importantly, that sets into motion these statistics over here. And so this is where, we can start to use quantitative analysis to kind of come up with an understanding of, what's more likely, what's less likely here. Again, in, going hand in hand with what we just spoke about in the 5-day Gaussian channel. Now, for the daily jewel, with this particular setup, out of 13 tested iterations, 11 played out with, a big sizable bounce. Obviously, this one, is going to increase that hit rate to 12 out of 14 because, we've already seen a 20% move. But here's where things become more interesting. So first things first, the average time taken for this setup to play out was 21 days with a standard deviation of 7 days. There was only one time where we saw this setup play out over a single digit amount of time. That was this one right here. This was quite some time ago, about 3 years ago. And I should denote that this particular setup that happened at 3,900 coming off of the 2018 lows did obviously continue for more over time, but there was a bit of a short-term consolidation within that range. So I did, I thought that it was most appropriate to kind of mark it off as such. Otherwise, it would have been like a massive 30 to 40% gainer, which it wasn't really fair to do. Anyways. It's not that it's fair to do. It's just it would kind of fuck around with the data. The only time that we really saw a humongous trending move in the first 20 days was this one right here, 38%, and that one did continue on for more as well. But there was a very obvious top and consolidation around that region. Anyways, if we go and put that data into context, seeing that the average time was about 21 days with a standard deviation of 7 days, that'd give us a range between 14 to 28 days. Well, thus far, we've seen this one play out for 3 days, not even 3 full days. So it would be the lowest one that we've ever seen. Again, we did see one with 4, so it'd be kind of comparable to that. But going off of likelihoods, it would be a little bit less likely, I would say, that things would just, kind of stop here. And we'll come up with invalidation soon enough as to when, that was the high. Also, to put things into perspective, we have already seen about a 19.5% rally from setup given to the current high at $26,500 or so. Going to the data over here, the average return for this particular setup was 15.25%. Now 15.25%, it's already overdone that in 3 days, let alone fucking 21 days. And so I do think that, it's probably more relevant to be looking at the top side of the first standard deviation if we do see continuation, probably even more than that, to be fair as well. It would probably end up being one of these more crazy ones over here if it does continue. So, if things do continue, you will know, one, by a daily closure above about, I don't know, 25.5 or so. Probably 26 would look better, obviously. But at that point, probably looking at a move into the $27,000 territory is where continuation areas of interest would be. But for right now, continues to follow through. So far, so good, I would say. Anyways, moving on to the next thing, I do want to come up with the invalidation for the short term, actually. And then we'll look at something that's completely different over here. I forgot to even talk about the damn sale. Hey, we have a 5-year anniversary sale going on. 20% off of all the programs and products. That, of course, is available over here. I'll let you see that for yourself. But the main point that I want to always be having is, hey, I would humbly request that you do watch the promotional videos that accompany any one of the programs or products, because they're going to explain who they're for and who they're not for. And also, by the way, you can get the Jewel Light for free right now as well if you follow the link in the description below. Very specifically following the directions in the below as well, because concerns me when I get messages about that, but fair enough, everyone starts from somewhere, right? Anyways, yes, coming back over here for the short term, what would be indicative of an early cautionary warning signal, with probably a move back down below 23 or at least to $23,000. Well, which would obviously come into an issue with the 5-day Gaussian channel over here, where the mean band is at a little bit above $23,000. I'd even say 23.5 is really where you want to see it hold above. The major area of interest would be right here at about 23,700 on a 4-hour time frame. That means if you do see a closure below there, I would expect things to come back down all the way to $23,000, and then we get to play the game of, tomorrow on Thursday. It's like, oh, is it going to close above? Is it going to close below? Thursday's usually the most down day. Probably not good statistics with that. So realistically, if we want to see things continue, it probably happens today, just kind of going off of the overall probabilities of this, greater picture. So continuation today and then pull back tomorrow. Take that as you will. Where does continuation become very, very obvious? Well, on a 4-hour time frame, back above basically like 26.1-ish, or a daily closure above especially 26, but I think even 25.5 would do it. I feel less confident about that. Now, I do want to bring up some over here to kind of end this one off. A bit of a different note, something that we haven't really spoke about in a while as well, and it's traditional markets. We're looking at NASDAQ futures, symbol NQ, for the front month, and it's very interesting to peruse Twitter about this one because people constantly say it looks very bearish. I think that this looks like a reasonable higher low, actually, after a bit of a breakout. Now, of course, here's the thing. That means nothing without the data. So first things first, we see extremely low BBWP as Bitcoin, NQ comes into a higher low, which is what you do expect. On top of that, we do see hidden bullish evidence. So momentum also sort of saying, hey, likely a higher low. Volatility saying, well, if we're going to see expansion from a higher low, probably leads towards continuation, so on and so forth. If traditional markets are likely preparing for a move to the upside, probably bodes well for Bitcoin as well, generally speaking. Not always, but generally speaking, obviously. And at that point, do these things go hand in hand? Just another thing that I do think kind of paints maybe a better picture for the upside rather than not. Now, of course, this will be completely invalidated and go back down to fucking wrecked city anywhere below the current low, which is basically the 200 simple at about 11.9 or so. What is it exactly? 11.950, sorry, 11.950. Until then, higher lows continue to do their thing, and I suspect that we'll get the resolution of this probably alongside today's event a little bit later. Anyways, yeah, I think that's good enough for today's video. 12 minutes long, probably a little bit too long for some people, judging off the comments. But you know what, man? You came to the wrong damn channel. But for the people who came to the right channel, I want to say a massive thank you, as always, for being a part of this community. 5 years is insane. It's absolutely insane. It doesn't feel that long at all. We'll be back to doing live streams somewhat soonish. I want to get back to Finland, really, before I start doing that. And what else? I want to be wishing you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.